Hey everyone, welcome to DataMillennials. I'm Atul, and in this video we are going to learn about tuples in Python. So what exactly is a tuple and where should we use tuple? So tuple is a collection of objects separated by comma inside a parenthesis. The main difference between tuple and list is that tuples are immutable while the lists are mutable. This implies, or basically it means that we cannot modify elements of tuple while we can modify the element of list. In real world scenario, tuples are generally used to store data that do not require any modification, but we need to do only retrieval of the data. Tuples are represented by parentheses. So whenever we would be creating tuple, we would be using these parentheses. So in general, the tuples are represented by parentheses. Now the first thing that should come to your mind as a question is that how we can create a tuple. So a tuple in Python is generally created using the tuple function or by writing the element separated by comma inside a parenthesis. So you can write a list of elements and separate it by comma, and if you use this bracket then it will be a tuple. However, you can also create an empty tuple using parentheses without any element in it. So we have to note that if we want to create a tuple with a single item, then we have to put comma after the item. So let's say that you want to create a tuple t and you want to have only one single item, then you have to put comma after that item. Okay, and this is because without comma the item is just itself wrapped into parentheses and portrays a redundant mathematical expression. That's why we have to give comma after even a single item in tuple. So let's go and start creating a tuple in multiple ways. So we will start with creating a tuple, or let's start by creating an empty tuple. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to put tuple1 equal to, and if I put parenthesis and then if I print this tuple1 and if I run it, you can see that we have this parenthesis the way we used to have empty list. Similarly, we have an empty tuple over here. Now if you want to check whether actually this tuple is a tuple or not, how would you verify that? You can simply use print and then you can use the type function, and then you can take this tuple 1 and put it over here, and if you run it then you can see that we have a class tuple over here. Now let's go one step ahead and create a tuple by adding only one element in that. So let's say that I have tuple 2 and I want to create a tuple with a single item. Let's say I have 24 in it. In order to create that we have to use comma. Okay, now if I take this part and copy it from here and put it over here, instead of tuple 1 if I put tuple 2 and if I run it, you can see that we have 24 comma as our output from print statement, and then with the second print statement where we have displayed the type of this tuple 2, we can see that the class is tuple. So in this way you can create a tuple with a single element. Now as we have created the tuple with a single element, let's create a tuple with multiple element. Okay, so we'll put tuple 3 equal to, let's keep 24, and then let's put some other element, Atul and Anand. Okay, then we're going to print tuple 3 and we are going to print the type of tuple 3, and if I run it you can see that we have a tuple over here and the class is tuple. Now we have seen how we can create simple tuple. Let's go one step further ahead and create a tuple from a list. Okay, so I'm going to declare a list which is named as my list. In this I'm going to put certain value, let's say 23.5, or let's keep 23 comma 5 comma 67. Then I'm gonna put my name. Okay, and I'm going to print this list. Now we have a list over here. What do we need to do is that we need to create a tuple from this list. Okay, so what I can do is that I can use the tuple function over here. So I can simply put a name to my tuple. For example, let's say list2 tuple, and then I'm going to use the tuple function which will basically help us to convert this my list into tuple. So I'm just going to put my list over here as my argument, and then I'm going to print list to tuple, and I'm going to print the type of list to tuple. Then I'm going to print my list. Also, I'm going to print type of my list. Now if I run it, you will see the first print statement gives list to tuple. So you can see you have parenthesis over here. Then we have type of list to tuple, that's why it says class as tuple. Then we have printed the list actually, that's why you have the square bracket over here. Then you have class list. So this way, by using the tuple function, you can convert any list into tuple. Now let's create a tuple from tuple and range function. Okay, so let's say that I have to create a tuple from range function, and I'm just going to give it a random name saying that tuple from range function equal to. Then I have to use the tuple function. Within this tuple function, I'm going to use range function. In this range, I'm going to give 1, 100, 10. So in our previous example, we have seen that tuple function helps us to convert anything into tuple. So we are using tuple over here. Within this tuple, the argument that we have given to this tuple function is the range from 1 to 100, and I want this range to be get incremented by 10. So our first value, between the first and second value, we would have difference of 10. Okay. Now if I print this tuple from range function that I've declared, you can see that it starts from 1, then 11, then 21, and it goes till 91. Okay. And if I take, or if I check the size of, not size, but if I check the type of this tuple function from range variable, you can see that we have class as tuple. So basically we have created a tuple from a range function using the tuple function. Now we have seen a different ways how we can create a tuple. Let's talk about accessing the elements of a tuple. So elements of a tuple can be accessed using the concept of indexing and slicing, as we have done in list, and indexing and slicing are done in similar way as list as we have done it in our previous video. So let's create a simple tuple example, and then we will try to access the element one by one. Okay, so let's say that I want to create a tuple example. In this tuple example, I'm just going to give couple of random values, 67, then I'm going to put my name, comma, let's say over here I'm just going to put a nested tuple. So let's first put India, then Bangalore, and then Delhi. Now let me print this tuple example. Now if I run it, you can see that we have a tuple. Within this tuple, we have a nested tuple that consists of 3 items, right? What if I want to access the first item of this tuple? Then how can I do it? I just want to access this 23, which is at index 0. So I can simply take this tuple example, okay, and put it simply like this, 0. And if I run it, you can see that we have 23 as the output. Let me put it in much better way. Let's say that tuple example accessing the tuple first item. And then we give this tuple example 0. If I run it, you have 23. Now what if I want to access the first 2 items? So I want 23 and 5. In that case, I can use slicing. Simply I'll put colon and then I'll put 2. This means that you take all the item from the starting and go till the last index, which is 2. And in Python we know that the last index will be n minus 1. So I want to take all the elements starting from 0 index till 2 minus 1, which is 1. So we want till first index. So we have 23 and 5. So if I run it now, we are having 23 and 5 as my output. Okay. Now let's say that we want to access the tuple last 3 items. Then how can I do it? If I simply take this part, put it over here and change it over here saying that tuple example accessing the last 3 items. Okay. So you have a tuple and you want to access the last 3 item from here. So this would be the last index, then this would be the second last index, and this would be the third last index. So I'll simply put -3 colon, and if I run it, you can see that we have all these 3 items. This is the last index item. Then we have Anand, which is second last index, which is exactly at second last index, and Atul is at third last index. Okay, let's take one more example that we want to access tuple item from index 1 till 3. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, put it over here, and I'm going to write the description saying that accessing the tuple items from index 1 to 4. Okay, so we need to access the elements at index 1. So 5 is at index 1 till the fourth index. So if 5 is at 1, 67 is at 2, Atul is at 3, Anand is at 4, right? So we'll simply have to give the start point, which is 1, and the last point, which is 4. But we know that in Python we have n minus 1 as the last index, so we'll give 5 over here. Now if I run it, you can see that we have 5, 67, Atul, and Anand. Okay. One last thing that we want to do with the indexing part is that, let's say that we want all the item that is from index 3 till the last item. So if we have, let's say, 1000 item in the tuple and we want it from third index till the last index of the tuple, then how we can do that? We'll simply take this, we'll put it over here, and then we'll write the description saying that accessing the tuple items from index 3 till last index, and then I'm simply going to put this tuple example start at 3, and we are not going to give any end position. So if the end position is blank, then it will get till the length of the tuple. So if I run it, you can see that we have all the item starting from index 3. So we have 23 at 0 index, 5 at first index, 67 at second index, and Atul is at third index. So you can see over here Atul, then Anand, then we have the nested tuple as our output. So this is a simple example of accessing the tuple item using the indexing and slicing. Now let's talk about accessing individual item of a nested tuple. So over here we have a nested tuple within this tuple example. So what if I want to access this India? In a simpler way, we cannot access this entire this single item within a nested tuple until unless we give the index of that nested tuple. So let me show you how you can do that. Let me first put the print statement saying that accessing first item of the nested tuple is, and then we are going to give this tuple example. So if we count the index, you can see that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this nested tuple is at fifth index, right? So if I put simply 5 over here and if I run it, you will see that we're getting all the items that is present in nested tuple. And if I simply put another bracket, and if I put 0 over here and if I run it, you will get India, which is the first item of the nested tuple. Similarly, you can put 1 and 2 over here. Let me change it from first to second and third. Now if I run it, I can access each of these item that is present in the nested tuple. So we have India separately, Bangalore separately, and Delhi separately. But what if, let's assume that you want to have India and Bangalore together. So you want first and second item of the nested tuple. So let me put it like this, accessing the first and second item of nested tuple. Let me correct it over here. So for that, you have to give this 5 as a starting index, or not the starting, but this is the index on which we have the nested tuple. Then we want everything from starting till the second item, right? So if we put second over here, then we are going to get India and Bangalore, because this is n minus 1. So if I run it, you can see that we are getting India and Bangalore. Now what if I want everything from second item till the third item? Okay, so if I want to access second and third item of nested list, then we can simply say that get on to the fifth index of this tuple, then take the second item, which is Bangalore, and it's on first index. So we'll start with 1 and then we'll say go till third item. So we have third item at index second for this inner or nested tuple. So for this, when this program will execute or this line will execute, it will get 3 minus 1. So we'll have the item that is present at index 1, which is Bangalore, and index 2, which is Delhi. So if I run it now, you can see that we have Bangalore and Delhi. Okay, so this is a simple example of slicing and dicing in tuple. Now let's talk about function in tuple. So in our previous video, we have performed a lot of function on list. Similarly, we can also perform a lot of function in tuple, but as we know that we cannot modify the element of a tuple, thus the function related to modifications are not applicable on tuple at all. For example, we cannot implement functions such as append, clear, extend, insert, remove on tuple. We can use some of the functions, like we can use sum, we can use minimum function, length function, count function, sorted functions and all that on tuple, but we cannot use any function that has a nature of modification, right? So let me take another example of tuple. So let's say I have a tuple example that has these many values, and if I print this tuple example and if I run it, you can see that we have a tuple. Okay, now what if I want to get some of this entire element that is present in tuple example? In that case, we can simply use the sum function with the print function. We can simply write print sum of this tuple example, and if I run it, you will get the sum of this entire element that is present in this tuple. Now if you want to get the maximum value of this tuple, you can simply use max function with this tuple example, and if you run it, you will see that 580 is the maximum value in this tuple. Now similarly, we can also find the minimum value of this tuple example using this minimum function. If I run this, you will have the minimum value, which is 25 out of this entire element that is present in tuple example. Now if you want to get the length, that how many items are present in this tuple example, you can simply use the length function. So let me put length and then this tuple example. If you run it, you have 11. So this says that you have 11 element in this tuple. Now let's assume that you want to count how many times this 580 is present in this tuple example. So you can simply use the count function. So we'll put print, and then I'm going to put tuple example dot count. Within this count, I'm going to put the value, which is 580, as my argument. Now if I run it, you can see that we're getting the output as 2. If I see my values over here in this tuple example, when I have declared it, 580 is appearing twice. So this count function returns the count or number of times an element is appearing in a tuple. The last function that we are going to see over here is the sort, that how you can sort this entire tuple. So if you want to sort it in ascending order, then you can use the sorted function. So if I simply write print, then this sorted function, and if I put this tuple example and if I run it, you will see that we have a sorted tuple over here. Earlier you can see that we have 25, then 95, then 30, but over here it's sorted in ascending order. So this was a brief example of tuple and a high level overview of how we can play around with tuple in Python. In our next video, we are going to discuss about sets in Python. Happy learning and see you in the next video.